Welcome to West Nale Virus, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about something a little interesting. So we recently did an episode where we each predicted the winners, Caleb and I, of each NFL division. NFC Southeast Northwest and AFC Southeast Northwest. Don't know why I went in that order. But that being said, we did that, and one of the predictions that I made is looked on somewhat negatively by the general public, I would say. So I predicted that the AFC South, consisting of the Titans, the Colts, the Texans, and the Jaguars, I predicted that of those teams, the Houston Texans would win the AFC South division. Now, here is my case for the Houston Texans. Okay, first of all, their last season, the Houston Texans season in 2021 to 2022, the 2021-2022 season, their head coach was David Culley. Now, I don't know that they should have fired him that quickly. I mean, he did go 4-13. Don't get me wrong, but it was 1 year. They gave him 1 year. Usually coaches get a little longer than that. He had never been a head coach before. That's the main thing. So he had never been a head coach before. He'd never been in this position before. He didn't get a whole lot of chance to do the job. That being said, they've moved on from that inexperience. Now, moving on, the big question is, right, did they get a better coach? So their new head coach is Lovie Smith. Now, this is my first point, their head coach. They went from David Culley, who had never coached before and was dealing with a team who had a new quarterback, new rookie quarterback, a lot of, new players have moved on. There's a lot of turnover, a lot of issues with the team, so they were guaranteed to do poorly last season. I don't think Culley was set up to do well. That being said, this year, Lovie Smith took over as head coach. He was an associate head coach and defensive coordinator last year for the Houston Texans, and he's taking over as head coach. Now, he has been a coach before. He, in fact, won NFL Coach of the Year in 2005 for, I believe, the Bears. Yes, for the Chicago Bears, which was his second year coaching. Now, I don't know that long-term Lovie Smith will be the coach that they are going to want to stick with. If they want, absolutely amazing success and want to win a Super Bowl, I don't think long-term Lovie Smith will be the answer. He might be. You never know. Maybe things just click for him and he is, and congratulations to him, whatever. But as of right now, I do not believe that he will be the long-term solution for the Houston Texans. I do think he will be the short-term solution for the Houston Texans. His regular season record in the NFL is 89-87. So barely over 500, but over 500. His postseason in the NFL is 3-3, which means he has made the playoffs 6 times. Well, actually, that's not necessarily what that means. I'm actually not 100% aware of how many times he's made it. He could have won multiple times in the same season. So I am an idiot, if you were wondering. But let me see. Lost in the NFC Championship, lost in the Super Bowl in 2006 with Chicago. So he's made it to a Super Bowl before. He's made it to another NFC Championship game, and he made it to an NFC divisional game. So he's made the playoffs 3 times and got knocked out all 3 times, but with a total of 3 wins. Looks like the first time he made the playoffs, he got knocked out pretty much immediately. Anyways, I think he is actually not a bad coach. He's a great defensive coach. That's why he was their defensive coordinator this past year. Say what you will about their defense, but he has had a great success as a defensive coordinator in the past, and he was head coach for the Chicago Bears and managed to take them to the Super Bowl in 2006. He took the Chicago Bears to the Super Bowl in 2006. Their quarterback that year was Brian Grease, Rex Grossman, and their quarterbacks were those two guys, and Kyle Orton. So not any real big name QBs. And they went 13-3 that year. So basically what I'm saying is I think Davis Mills is actually one of the best quarterbacks he has worked with. Based on his rookie season, if Davis Mills continues to improve at the rate he's going, he's going to be a good quarterback in the league, and Lovie Smith will be able to work with him as his signal caller, his main part of his offense. On top of that, they have picked up multiple players they needed. First of all, they re-signed Malik Collins and Desmond King, which I don't think makes a big difference, but as a defensive lineman and cornerback, they need both those. And they acquired defensive back MJ Stewart. They also signed one new offensive lineman, AJ Can, and defensive end Ogbonia Okoronkwo, who's not bad. So I think they've improved on defense, improved on offense, improved on the offensive line as well, because the Texans draft class this year, which I forgot to pull up, but let me pull it up right now. It was a pretty good draft class as well. So the first thing is they drafted with the, I believe, 3rd overall pick, Derek Stingley Jr. I think it was a pretty good pick. He wasn't my favorite pick at the time, but I have definitely gone up on it so far this offseason. First of all, they drafted Derek Stingley. Then they moved on. They drafted Kenyon Green, offensive lineman, who I think will make a difference on their team. I think both of those picks, huge for them. They also picked Christian Harris, a linebacker out of Alabama, who I think will be really good, and I think he might be able to help first year. And they also picked up Jalen Petrie, another defensive back. So they have upgraded on defense. I think Jalen Petrie will be good as well. I think all 4 of those guys could very easily make a difference. I think their draft was stellar. I think their offseason, their free agency and trades and things were pretty good. They got what they needed to for Deshaun Watson. And other than that, yeah, I don't see why people are so far down. I understand that Houston was bad last year, but listen, I think they're a dark horse here. Now, and also they have Kyle Allen as a backup quarterback, who, you all remember him. They also signed Cedric Ogbuyi, and restructured Laramie Tunsil's contract, which was big. Malik Collins was a big bring back. Pharaoh Brown, a tight end. Not the biggest news, but could be helpful. They agreed to terms with Terrence Brook, safety, re-signed him. They brought in AJ Can. They re-signed Justin Britt, their center. So they haven't lost a lot of skill other than, I guess you could argue Deshaun Watson, but he didn't play for them last year. So, whatever. Okay. Now those are my arguments for the Texans. Now the biggest detractors against the Texans are, hey, what about the Titans and Colts? Titans won last year, did pretty good. Colts, they are not bad, and they weren't bad last year, and they signed Matt Ryan. They should get better this year, right? I don't think so. I do not super believe in the Indianapolis Colts this year. I think they are going to need another year to work it out. I don't know if Matt Ryan will ever end up working out for the Colts, but if he does, it's not going to be till next year. I think they're going to have some growing pains. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I just think they will. I don't have a lot of good arguments against the Colts, I'll be honest, but that's just what I think. On top of that, though, a lot of people are saying that the Colts will have a slow start to their offense. As we know, Houston Texans, defensive head coach, Lovie Smith, they play the Houston Texans week 1. I think the Houston Texans have a stronger start than the Indianapolis Colts. And I think the Houston Texans will win that first game. And I think that will be integral in beating the Colts in the NFC, not the NFC East, sorry, in the AFC South. What? In the AFC South. Now, the Tennessee Titans, the winners last year, who went 12-5. Okay. Admittedly, sure, looks bad that I'm predicting this. Guys, Ryan Tannehill has never been a stellar quarterback. He sees regression this year. I think we start to see the decline of Ryan Tannehill. He's had some good years, past few years. We see a decline this year. On top of that, to make that decline worse, who did he lose? Star receiver A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. Sure, I know. Julio Jones did not do that much for them this past year. But losing Julio Jones and A.J. Brown in 1 year is a pretty big loss. Okay, you still have Derrick Henry. What if Derrick Henry gets hurt? If Derrick Henry gets hurt, that team is done. That being said, other than that, Treylon Burks is their replacement for A.J. Brown. Pretty much just a 1-for-1 replacement on that one. I don't think he will be as good this year as A.J. Brown would have been. Maybe Treylon Burks ends up being an amazing receiver. I just do not think that was a good move for them if they're trying to win now. I do not think Treylon Burks will make the biggest difference. And they lost Pro Bowl guard Roger Saffold. Big loss for them. They lost tight end Anthony Firkser. That's not a huge loss. And linebacker Rashawn Evans. That's maybe. But they got Robert Woods, receiver. I don't think he'll make the rest of a difference. They signed Austin Hooper. He is probably better than Anthony Firkser, but, we'll see. And they re-signed Harold Landry and Ben Jones, who they had last year. Now, they also drafted cornerback Roger McCreary, and they also grabbed Malik Willis. Malik Willis is more of a long-term prospect. Roger McCreary, I'm not super huge on. If he works out, good for him. If not, he doesn't. But that's just that's how I see it. And that is why I believe the Houston Texans are going to win the AFC South. And that's it. So thank you for listening, everybody. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, any of those places, anywhere where podcasts are found, at West Nale Virus on all of those things. Caleb and I also both have personal Twitter accounts now. I'm at Josiah _WNV. He is Caleb _WNV. And other than that, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you tomorrow.